Greetings, mortals, and welcome to this video about Get Out.
So this is going to be a little bit of a review video. I've never really done one of these, don't think. But I felt like it would be a fun thing to do. So, I think that Get Out was a very interesting and extremely important movie. I think that it surprised me. There's been a few pieces of media recently that surprised me with how good they were. I was very impressed by Persona 5 as well. But Get Out was a movie that actually really, really impressed me, and it horrified me in exactly the way that it was intended to horrify people, I think. I have sort of a unique perspective as someone who's lived overseas in a former British colony. I don't have the same experience that most white people have. Most white people live in a place where they are the norm. And to me, I am very intimately familiar with the differences in the way that people treat each other that are very subtle based on their race. The assumptions that people make about me, a lot of the way that people think about me is framed through the lens of my race here in a way that is not normal for white people. And it's not the same as it is for black people in America, but it gives me a bit of context for the experience that they're going through. Because for me, I'm coming from I'm being treated as the master. Okay? I'm a minority from a group that is historically and to this day continues to be almost exclusively very wealthy foreign interlopers, if you will. And the assumptions that people make about me are in that vein. People assume that I'm very wealthy, that I'm potentially dangerous to piss off. They have a lot of different assumptions about me. I'm physically larger and more intimidating than the people around me. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that go into it, but the way that people interact with me here is different than the way that people interacted with me at home. So I have experience with racial, the sort of underlying racism. Racism that isn't about not giving someone a job because they're the wrong race, or that's about, certainly, the kinds of events that happen in Get Out or anything like that. I'm familiar with subtleties in racism, and in the previous video I was talking about learning to understand the behaviors behind the behaviors, right? Get Out is all about that subtext, and it's all about taking a subtext of this sort of passive discomfort that is very common amongst white people. White people have trouble oftentimes interacting with black people, especially if they come from a predominantly white neighborhood. And interacting with them, they feel uncomfortable because they don't want to come off as racist. They don't want to be racist, but they're constantly thinking about the race of the other person, right? They're actively thinking about it and thus behaving weirdly because they're actively thinking about racism. Now, that doesn't make them racist in the sense of thinking anything bad about black people or anything like that. But it changes their behavior. It fundamentally alters their behavior the second a black person walks into the room, right? It adds a degree of difference to the way that they interact with people. Okay, so that's the context that I'm coming from. Now to the movie. The movie surprised me, and anyone who has not seen the movie, I suggest that you watch the movie before you watch this, because it's worth it to watch it. even if you think you know what it's about, you probably don't unless you've had the movie spoiled for you. So I definitely suggest that you watch it. Get Out is not about the real world, okay? That's not what it's about. It's not about the real world. It's about the deepest, darkest fears of what the world might be. Get Out is about trying to explain how white people who claim to be, you know, sort of on your side can politically and in other ways blindside you with horrifying decisions that directly impact your life without batting an eye, right? And these people seem like they're not racist, but at the same time, they're voting for people into office who are doing horrible things to people of other races. And they don't bat an eye at it. They're like, well, I know he's a racist, but, look at Hillary, right? And they expect you as another person, as a non-white person, they expect you to understand, well, clearly, I mean, those emails, am I right? And how do you, and this isn't directly related to the election, obviously, because this was made before then. But these kinds of decisions and these kinds of things that are done happen continuously, right? This is continuously, white society ignoring and minimizing the things that happen to other people when faced with frankly trivial political concerns by comparison. Okay? This movie is about what if your darkest interpretation of that is actually true? What if these people who act like they're your friends have actually had it in for you the entire time, and they're just using you, and eventually they're going to enslave you? That's what the movie is about. It's about that darkest fear that I'm sure is a very common thing to have deep in, black people's hearts because of the way that they're treated, the way that people interact with them. Every time you interact with, someone, there's that conversation you have with them of, don't worry, my parents / friends / etc. aren't racist. And then you go and hang out with them and they say and do a lot of things that make you super uncomfortable. And then they apologize afterward like it came out of nowhere. And it's like, well, I did kind of warn you. I'm kind of an expert on this. It happens to me all the time. Right? And I can identify with that because, again, I'm a minority here. And I don't have that experience because that experience is a fundamental inversion. Because in America, the so-called masters are the majority, and the people that they were subjugating are the minorities. But here, the people that were doing the subjugation were the minority. It's different fundamentally, right? But at the same time, you still feel the subtext of the color of your skin and the way that you look otherizes you. It makes it so that no interaction with you feels entirely comfortable because of the way that people are interacting. Just the very fact that people want to not seem racist changes their behavior. It turns you into the other. And all of their attempts to make you feel comfortable come off as hollow and forced and potentially creepy, right? And disturbing. And I think that as a movie, it took me by surprise where it was going. I was thinking that the movie was going to be about a fundamentally not racist family that kind of tolerates racism around them, because that to me is the experience that I have, like the way that I think about racial relations in America. All these characters are pinging to me as, okay, well, they tolerate these assholes because they're surrounded by it and they think that it's normal, but they don't behave like that themselves. And then to have it turned on its head, to find out that, yeah, these people are the villains of the narrative. These people, these false friends, are the people that you should be terrified of, makes it such a powerful narrative, especially when you find out that the girlfriend is in with it. Like, as soon as you find that out, oh my god, it's too much. It was so horrifying to me. And I was watching it with a couple of my friends from here, and of course they're not from America. They don't really. I had to pause it occasionally to explain some of the really, like, the subtle stuff, like the way that the father greeted the protagonist and things of that nature. Like, I had to explain, like, oh, that's weird. Like, I mean, not weird so much as, like, that right there is uncomfortable. Like, that interaction is already an uncomfortable interaction for him, right? Because without having to say, hey, black guy, he basically said, hey, black guy. And there was a lot of that in the narrative. And I think that it's a very important movie because of how honest it is. You don't usually see this much honesty from movies, particularly from horror movies. The scenario in this movie is legitimately horrifying. It's legitimately terrifying. And I found myself horrified the entire time while not feeling like, it wasn't like jump scares and stuff like that. I felt horrified. It was a horror movie. And every piece of that movie felt like it was specifically meant to touch on the fears that are very real to a large section of the American populace. And I thought that it was very good to get those feelings out. And I think that it's important that people understand. I've heard people say that the movie is racist because of it's like all the white people in the movie are the bad guys. And I think that is a silly way to think, because the point of the movie isn't that this is the way that the world is. The point of the movie is this is the deepest, darkest fear. If you could take the societal fears that are ingrained in people of color who live in a society where they are otherized in a very hostile manner, and sometimes it's not overtly hostile, sometimes it's just, the way that someone greets you, they greet you slightly differently, slightly more ghetto, like, because of your skin color. That has an impact on people, and it makes people afraid of fundamentally different things than people who don't have that experience are. I thought that it was a very honest movie. I felt that it was I thought that it was heart wrenching. The idea that the fear that's present in that movie is a fear that I immediately understood once I saw what was happening, and I felt horrified that I didn't see it coming. That movie had a strong impact on me, and I feel like it's absolutely a must-see. And when you look at it, you should watch that movie and think of it from the perspective of how can people who behave like this still be so callous and so uncaring when it comes to matters of life and death for people of a different skin color. right? That may not be that might not be the agenda of the movie, but to me, that the fact that white people have repeatedly given reason for black people to doubt their honesty when they claim that they care about things like this, when they care about, people who aren't white, there's a lot of reason to doubt that that's the case. And I think that it is. I think it's a heart-wrenching narrative. I think that it is a horrifying narrative. And I think that it's a very sad thing that they had to change the original ending, while simultaneously I think that the fact that they changed it and the commentary that the director has on why he changed it, the commentary the director has on why he changed it rings so false that it reinforces the entire narrative. I watched it on Amazon, and it had both endings, and we watched both endings. And when it goes to the second ending, it has the director's commentary on the ending. And the reason for the change, if you watch that, is so awkward and strange that it felt clearly unnatural. He's clearly lying, and that, to me, brings the whole point of it home even further, right? And I legitimately don't know if that was a directorial choice specifically to trigger that response, or if the producers and the higher-ups are literally so blind that they accidentally did it. Like, that they vetoed that ending because it was going to make white people uncomfortable. And, like, I don't know what actually happened, but I could go either way. And I think that either way is an entirely appropriate way to end the movie. I think that the true ending for the movie is neither the theatrical release or the original. I think it's that combination of the two. The true ending of that movie is, I can't show you this movie as it was originally intended, and I can't even tell you why. So, anyway, that was to me a very powerful movie, and I have a lot of respect for all the people who were involved in that, and my heart goes out to anyone who is put in a position where they feel that way, where they have that fear in their hearts. I don't care how far from the surface that fear is. Just that tinge of fear, even if you have just the slightest fear of that all the people that are supposedly your allies are actually against you, and that they really, really, really don't care, is it was a powerful movie, and I wish that movie was not necessary, and that we could treat people as people and respect them, and not just willfully ignore as all sorts of horrible things are happening to them. So thank you everyone for watching. It has not really been a pleasure to make this video, but I think that the movie was important, and I haven't really seen anyone talk in any of the reviews that I've seen. I've seen people talk about the symbolism and, you know, the cotton and the slavery and the this and the that. I don't care about symbolism. I care about emotions, and I care about what people are thinking, and the thought and care that went into that movie, and the fundamental nature of the villain and the villains in that movie is so... It's a harsh thought. So start treating people with respect if you aren't already. And be kind to each other, please. We really need it these days. Later, folks.